Hi, it's me, Daphne. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going through the books that I read in February and March. So the first one I read in February was Lessons in Chemistry. This book was like Barnes & Noble's best book of the year or something, so I wanted to prioritize it for the start of 2023. I did start it in January, but I ended up finishing it in February. This is honestly like kind of a deceiving book. Like when I first saw the cover, I was like, what is this? Like I wasn't really that intrigued by this design. I thought it was gonna be like some rom-com-y book or something, but it's not that at all. It's more of like women's fiction, feminist, and all that kind of vibes. I'll put up a picture of the British version of this book that is a better representation of like what this story is about. So Elizabeth Zott is our main character. She is a chemist and she works in a lab, but it's like the 50s or something. What year is it? The 60s. And there's a lot of sexism against her in the workplace, and it's her like dealing with that and trying to prove, you know, her intelligence and her value and like following her dream and not just like doing what other people want her to do. So her main struggle is that due to circumstance, she becomes a single mother and she is desperate to bring in enough income to support her family. And the science thing is just like not working out because of the sexism and stuff. So she ends up becoming like a TV personality for a cooking show, but she does it with her own take, and she like tells all the science about it, and it's this story, and it's very feminist, and it was a fun time. I would definitely recommend it. I ended up giving it 5 stars. My one clear criticism is that obviously it's a historical, and historicals don't always have to be like depressing, but there were like upsetting things obviously due to like the sexism and stuff. But there wasn't any real mention of like the other things going on in the 60s with like other major rights issues with like black people and things like that. That was just kind of brushed over. Like it was quickly mentioned that Elizabeth was on the right side of the argument, but she didn't come across any non-white people in the story, which is kind of disheartening, you know, when these historical books just like really brush like that stuff away. But at the same time, maybe that was people's real experience. Like a person like Elizabeth, a white woman in suburbia, wouldn't have really come across other people. I don't know. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, that's my main critique, but it was still an excellent book. I loved the discussion. I thought the writing was really good. And then I picked up Heatstokes by Kema B. This is a novella by a black author. This cover is quite deceiving. This is like a skinny woman in a desert in a bikini, I think, if I remember off the top of my head. Obviously you can see the image. Let me just double check. But this is not what the book is about at all. So this story is between Simone and Zion. So Simone is a curvaceous black woman, which is why the cover kind of irritates me. The cover does not represent the story at all. I don't even think she's ever in a bathing suit in the story. She is a freelance makeup artist and she's working on building up her credibility. She's getting in the door with like more celebrity shoots and stuff like that. And then Zion is a model who is aspiring to become an actor. He's already very successful as a model. He's got a lot of money. And Simone and Zion meet at a bar one day and he is just like, she needs to be mine. But Simone recently swore off men because her ex, her very recent ex, cheated on her with someone close to her that she hates. And she's like, I'm done with men, but she has this undeniable connection with Zion and they like share a kiss, and then she's like, nah, I'm done. And then Zion is like determined to find out like more about her and win her heart, and it's that story. So I ended up rating it 3.5. I will say the writing style is very specific. It's quite like colloquial. I hope I'm saying that right. And I hope you know what that means. But pretty much it's just very like informal writing. It's almost like, I think it's written in third person. So the narrator is like very casual and like kind of speaks like the main characters would speak. So they're using slang and like things like that, which was a little distracting at first. But you can get used to it for sure. And would I recommend it? Sure. It wasn't like the best thing I ever read. It really annoys me about the cover, but moving on. Then I read American Royalty. First off, please appreciate this cover. It is stunning. I love the art style of this. She's gorgeous. And this is a story between Danny and Jameson. Danny goes by Duchess. She is a very successful female rapper, and she is trying to like expand beyond just like her music career. She really wants to go into like, I think it was skincare, you know, kind of like how any big celebrity will branch off, like with Rihanna doing makeup and stuff like that. But then there's like this other bitchy woman music artist that is messing with Danny's reputation and her like business deals, because people don't want to work with her anymore because the rumor mill is like not good with her right now, so she needs to fix her reputation. And Jameson, he is in the royal family in England. Danny's from America, and he gets like roped into doing this like charity event for the Queen, and he's supposed to pick like a couple musical acts, and he randomly hears there's this music artist named Duchess. He's like, okay, she must be perfectly fit for like a royal thing. Her name is Duchess. He knows nothing about her, and he just adds her name to the list. So Danny's like, this is a great opportunity. This is great publicity, great like positive publicity for me. I'm definitely gonna do it. Then Jameson finds out who she really is, and he's kind of like taken aback and shocked and instantly attracted to her. He is just like, finds her so like sensual. And you know how sometimes these female rappers, they're like, their videos are sexy, and he is just like jaw on the floor. But he tries to like deny his attraction. There's a bit of forced proximity in this, so I ended up giving this 4 stars. It was a good time. I would recommend it for sure. Oh, but one other thing that is a critique is that like the spicy scenes were spicy, but some of the spicy scenes, they could just kind of like be like detailed, and then they just kind of fade to black midway through. It was like the author was like, oh, you don't need to know everything that happens. And I'm just like, what's the point of that? Just like finish out the whole thought, finish out the whole moment, you know what I mean? But it would just, she would just like fade to black for the beginning, and I was like, what? And then other parts she wouldn't, and I was just like, it was just like a weird thing that I haven't experienced before, but whatever, that's just me. Next, I read Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl. I had to read this for my IRL book club here in my apartment building. So this is like a story about gender fluidity and sexuality. So Paul identifies as a man. He uses he, him pronouns, but he has this like magical power where he can transform his body. And it's not like a werewolf where he's like in one form and then completely transforms into another thing and like it's 2 forms. He can minutely change things about himself. He can make himself a little leaner. He can make himself a little taller. He can make his jaw a little softer. He can grow breasts. He can change his, you know, genitalia, things like that, to be more feminine or minutely different. And it was just a really interesting take on like what that means, and like being gay, being queer, the relationships he got into in the story, and like him just being a very sexual creature. I have a vlog where I talked about this more in detail, which I can link down in the description and in the cards if you want to check it out. I would definitely recommend it. I annotated it a lot, and I had a great time with it. It's definitely a character focused story, not plot focused at all. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and that's only because I just like wanted the end to feel more like concrete, where it was kind of more left open and just like, oh, you hope about something gonna happen. I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted it to be a little more wrapped. And then also there was a lot of musical references. So this book takes place in the 90s, and there's like a lot of very specific rock music references that just completely went over my head. But if you know that genre and that time period very well, like that will add like definitely an extra layer of enjoyment for this book, I'm sure. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. Next, I picked up Kennedy Ryan's The Kingmaker. This is the first book in a series. I haven't read the second one yet. This story is between Maxim and Lennox. So Lennox is an indigenous woman to the United States. I know there's kind of a lot of talk on like the way to properly say that. I've recently heard that like saying Native American isn't like specific enough because the Americas are so broad, not even just like the US. states of America, but like South America, like, you know, just like there's like the Americas is huge. And then some groups might like to be called Indians, even though that's not technically correct, and it was like a name forced on them, but it's something they've like reclaimed. I don't know. I like watched this video. But for this, you know, if I'm saying something that could be said better, I'm sorry. But I'm just gonna say she's an indigenous, I don't know. But I guess I'll just say she's an indigenous Native American Indian. I don't know. But anyway, she is very passionate about like protecting her culture and their rights and their reservations, so she protests a lot. And Maxim is studying to be like an environmental engineer and like just doing environmental work, but his father is like this big greedy like oil company conglomerate monopoly kind of guy, and his father is putting a dangerous pipeline through Lennox's reservation's land, and he happens to be there when she's protesting. They have this moment together. A lot of years go by, and then they kind of reconnect, and Lennox doesn't really know who he is and who he's connected to and how much his family has hurt her, and it's their romance. And there was like a few, not a few, but there were a couple time jumps that like really shocked me. I mean, the first time jump made sense, but then the second time jump, I was like, oh my God, so much wasted time. So I'd say the tropes are like hidden identity, enemies to lovers, for the most part, and a little bit of age gap, but not too much, nothing noteworthy. And then the story had a bit of like a thriller aspect at the end, so it left off on a major cliffhanger, and I'm a little nervous about what's gonna happen. And also it kind of gives me the impression that the couple's gonna be separated for most of the second book. Or maybe not, I don't know. I should give it a try. I plan on reading the second one. I just haven't been in a rush to pick it up because I'm like, this is like stressful situation. But yeah, I ended up giving this 4 stars. I love Kennedy Ryan, and I will keep reading her backlist. Sorry, this video is hella long, I'm sure. Now we're finally into March. So after I got married, I was like, you know what? I just need some easy, fun romances to try. So I picked up Hefty by Jessa Kane. This is just like a smutty like novella. I don't even know if it's a novella because it's that short. It's like only 77 pages. This story is between Jill and Zach. Sorry, I'm just looking at my computer. And there was so much dual pining in the story. So I found that like with the handful of Jessa Kane books that I've read, because I did binge like a few of them in March, and we'll get to it. They tend to be like 18-year-olds in high school, and at least one of the characters is virgin. So you're gonna kind of hear that come up a lot in some of these books. So in this story, Jill is like this beautiful blonde cheerleader, and Zach is this like hefty football player. I think he's like a lineman or something. He's not popular at all, and he's kind of Jill's shadow. He's known her since they were kids, and Jill has been secretly in love with him for years, and Zach has been secretly in love with her as well. And it's them finally kind of making it known. And it was just really sweet and fun and spicy and very unrealistic with some of these moments, because they're both like virgins, and it's like, how are you this good when you literally have no idea what's going on? Like, you have no experience, and like you're experts, you know what I mean? So not the most realistic one that I read, but it was really, really sweet because the pining was just too adorable, and I just love a male hero that is just so obsessed and in love with his woman. Even though in reality, sometimes that can be toxic. But in books, it's fun. So for Hefty, I ended up giving it 5 stars. It just delivered with what I needed at the time. Is it the best writing ever? Is it the most logical story ever? No, but it delivered what I expected and what I wanted. So 5 stars. Then I finally read Penelope Douglas's Birthday Girl. This is like a major moment for me. This is the second Penelope Douglas book I've read. I was originally like very intimidated and hesitant to read this because it's a taboo romance. If you don't know, this is a story about Jordan. She is a 19-year-old woman who is studying in like, kind of feels like community college, and she has a boyfriend. He is not the best, and he throws a party at their apartment and ends up getting them kicked out. So they have to move into his father's house. and it's the taboo relationship between Jordan and her boyfriend's father, Pike. And that just like made me hesitate so much. But I will admit, the way it was handled was very believable and like not creepy at all. Like I was worried Pike was gonna be like so creepy and icky, like why are you pining after this like young girl? He had his son when he was pretty young, so he's like 38 and she's 29, or sorry, normal would be like she's 29. Is he 38? Yeah, because his son is like 19 and he had his son when he was like 18. Anyway, yikes. It sounds worse when you say it out loud. I lost my train of thought. The way it was handled, I thought was, you know, pretty endearing. He really cared about his relationship with his son. His relationship with his son was pretty strained because he's separated from the mother, obviously, and the mother is just like whispering like negative things about him to the son all the time. So the son just like didn't trust the father anymore. So he really wants to like have a good relationship with the son, but he's like very attracted to Jordan. And he had met Jordan like a couple days before at the movie theater, and they just like hit it off, and he had no idea who she was. She had no idea who he was until, you know, circumstances changed. And I just, after a while, it was just eating it up. I ended up giving it 4 stars, another very successful read from Penelope Douglas, and I'm even more excited to get into her backlist because her writing has been very good. And it's like the taboo stuff that scares me, but like I'm feeling like she's handling it pretty well. I had a great time and I would definitely recommend this. Don't let it scare you off. It does feel like believable, even though it is obviously very taboo. Then I read my second Jessica Kane for the month, which was As If I Wouldn't Fall. And this is another like smutty mini book that's only, it's like less than 100 pages. This story is another like high school romance. Obviously they're like both 18. If they weren't 18, I wouldn't read it. But the main characters are Ayla and Flint. So Ayla is like the typical sweet, innocent girl next door kind of character, and Flint is this like really tall, like intimidating young man. He works as a mechanic and he is obsessed with Ayla. Like he is her shadow, like literally. Like he follows her everywhere she goes at school. He's always like sitting right behind her, like kind of like scary, like kind of very stalkery, but he never like says anything to her. One day like Ayla dings up her car and she goes to his mechanic shop and he is there to help her, and like once she acknowledges his existence and he like speaks to her the first time, it like opens the floodgates for him. Like he's like, you are mine, like I need you now. Like he's very intense. Like he's probably one of the most intense men I've ever read in any book ever. Like so intense. And I know this is something people mention when they talk about this book, like I just don't know how to say it, so it's like not so embarrassing to say, but I'll just say it. He tattooed his little self with her name before they even spoke. Like he's like that intense. And also he has this like kink where he like wants to impregnate her. So if you hate like pregnancy stuff, like definitely don't read this because he is like obsessed with it. But like he also doesn't want to ruin her life, so he's been avoiding that urge, but like unable to stay away from her. And she's attracted to him too. And it's that wild ride of a story of like once he kind of like opens the floodgates for being obsessed with her. It was very spicy. I mean, it's a smutty book. It did what it was supposed to do. I ended up giving it 3.5 because again, the realistic aspects are like not realistic. It's just not realistic. And he was just so intense. And some of the things that happened with, I can't spoil it because the thing is so short, but there's like other backstory dramatic things that are happening. They just like, I don't know, like stuff was going crazy. This book was crazy, but I mean, Jessica Kane, if you just need like a palate cleanser for some smutty something, and like go for Jessica Kane, okay? Then the last Jessica Kane I read in March was When the Farmer Met the City Girl. And this one I ended up giving 2 stars. I just didn't vibe with this one as much. So this one is finally one that isn't about high schoolers. So this is about Bianca and Dusty. Bianca is an aspiring actress. She lives in the city, but she's driving through the countryside, coming back from her mother's house. She was like visiting her mom and her car like breaks down or something. Dusty sees her like just outside of his property, so he offers to help her, and it's them like having a night together and him becoming obsessed with her. And also, surprise, Dusty and Bianca are both virgins. And oh, and in the other book, were they virgins? In the last Jessica Kane, as If I Wouldn't Fall, Flint was not a virgin, but Ayla was a virgin. So yeah, always a virgin in the story with Jessica Kane. I read another Jessica Kane in April. It's April now, obviously, where there was another virgin, but I'm not gonna talk about that now. It was fine, but it was just like another case of like virgins being like experts in bed. Like, it's not realistic. And he was very intense, and it was just, obviously it's like insta love, but with the other ones, the guys were obsessive, but like their obsession was over years. Whereas this one, like, they just met and like he was like really obsessed with her. And obviously he's like, you know, he's got his own farm, he's an attractive man. I just don't know why like no other women were like looking at him. Like, he was just like, I don't know. There was just like a lot of like this, what is it called? There were just a lot of moments where I had to suspend my disbelief, and I don't know. I don't recall really why, but like I gave it 2 stars. It just, for whatever reason, it didn't work as well as the other ones. The last book I read in March was for my IRL book club. This was Stephen King's Rose Madder book. I have the UK edition. I got this off like Pango Books because I hated the other covers. I hated them. I think I gave this 3 stars. It was okay. I mean, this is the first Stephen King book I read, and I know it's not like one of his more popular ones. So this is a domestic thrilling suspense novel with our main character being Rose. She has been with her husband for like over 10 years, and he is violently abusive to her, like beyond. And then one day she kind of just has enough and walks out with like just the clothes on her back, and she takes his bank card to like take out some cash to like escape him. He is a cop, so he's very good at like hunting down people, and he's livid that she had the audacity to leave him. So he's hunting her down, and he just wants to like put her in her place and like pretty much kill her. So it's that story. And there are some like magical aspects as well, which at first kind of surprised me, but then didn't surprise me because I know Stephen King's other books have like magical elements with like the car being magical, and then like it, and then like, you know, there's just like a lot of magical things that are like Pet Cemetery. Like, there are a lot of magical aspects going on in his book. So I will say I did struggle to physically read it at times because it's so long. It is so long. But I got the audiobook from my library and was listening along, which was much more enjoyable. Overall, solid 3 stars. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this out of like Stephen King's books. If I'm gonna try another Stephen King, I'm gonna go with his top, you know, list, like his most popular. So that's all the books I read throughout February and March. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I will catch you in another video. Bye!